guys, so in this lesson I'm hoping to quickly cover how to turn a tonal jazz song into a modal jazz song. Now, to understand what I'm going to be covering in this video, you should first watch my videos on tonal versus modal harmony and modal jazz. Because this video is essentially just going to take all the ideas I covered in those two videos and put them into practice. So tonal harmony has the following features. It uses major or minor keys, it has a functional harmony, it has a tonal center or a root note, it uses tertian harmony, that is, it builds chords up in thirds, and your typical tonal chord progression moves down in fifths. So for example, from E minor 7 to A7 to D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. And modality has the following features. It uses all the modes, so your song could be in D Dorian or E Phrygian or F Lydian and so on. It does not use functional harmony. It does have a tonal center. It generally uses quartal harmony, that is building chords up in fourths. And a typical modal chord progression moves down in steps. So for example, you could have the root note being on the F, then move down to the E, then down to the D, and down to the C. Modal jazz also uses a lot of repetition through things like pedal points, drones, ostinatos, or vamps. And it has a very slow-moving harmonic rhythm, which just means it has very few chord changes and chords last for a long time. So really, reharmonizing a tonal song into a modal song is actually pretty easy, because the whole point is to largely get rid of the entire chord progression and just play a couple of chords in their place. So you only really have sort of one or two or maybe three chords through the entire piece. Now, one of the most famous tonal songs that was changed into a modal jazz song is John Coltrane's My Favorite Things. So when Coltrane plays the head or the melody, it still sounds a little bit tonalish. The chords still sound like they're a little bit functional, and the melody also sounds a little bit tonal. It still sounds like you can make out a dominant chord moving to a tonic chord. But it is a little bit vague, and it is still a little bit modal because of the way that it's played. But then the solo part of the song is completely 100% modal. And another good song to check out by John Coltrane is his version of Chim Chim Cheree, which is arguably moving more towards that sort of free jazz genre rather than modal jazz, but check it out nevertheless and see what you think for yourself. Now, while you can probably change any song into a modal song, it helps if the melody of the song is largely in one key, because as I said before, modal songs don't really change chords often, and so therefore don't really change keys often. And it also helps if the melody moves by step and doesn't clearly outline the chord progression. For example, if we look at the melody of the jazz standard All of Me, it goes like this. So firstly, that melody is not in one single key. There are a lot of accidentals being used. And secondly, the melody clearly outlines the chords by arpeggiating them. It starts with a C major arpeggio, and then it plays an E major arpeggio. And so you can hear the chord progression clearly even without playing the chords in my left hand, which incidentally are the C major 7 followed by an E7. So this song is harder to turn into a modal jazz song because the melody will always inherently sound tonal. Even without playing any chords, you can still hear those chord changes because the melody outlines them. On the other hand, the melody of Fly Me to the Moon goes like this. Right, so that melody was largely in one key, the key of A natural minor. It just had that one accidental. And the melody largely moves by step and doesn't obviously outline or arpeggiate any particular chords. So this song would work better when converting it to a modal jazz song. Now the melody largely uses only the white notes. So you could conceivably change this song into the key of C Ionian, D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, and so on. So what I just played was in the key of D Dorian because I kept emphasizing the D as our tonal center. But you could play that exact same thing but emphasize a different note, say the note F, and therefore change the key of this modal version of Fly Me to the Moon to F Lydian. Right, so by just emphasizing the relevant root note in the bass, we can feasibly change this melody into the key of any mode of the C major scale. Now, another thing that modal songs do is use ostinatos, or vamps, that sit on a single chord for a long period of time. Now, many modal songs do this. For example, Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage, Wayne Shorter's Footprints, and of course Miles Davis's So What. For example, Herbie Hancock's modal jazz song Cantaloupe Island has a great vamp that goes like this. So you could create your own vamp that sits on maybe one or two chords and then play a tonal melody or a tonal song on top of that and therefore turn it into a modal jazz song. Or of course you could just steal a well-known vamp. So for example, let's take the Cole Porter Tonal Jazz Standard What Is This Thing Called Love and play it over the vamp from Cantaloupe Island. Now, the melody does clash with that underlying F minor harmony in a few places, but that's okay. After all, it's jazz. But I personally think that actually works relatively well. And so, as you can see, it's actually pretty easy to reharmonize a tonal jazz song into a modal jazz song. All you really have to do is take that existing chord progression and completely disregard it, chuck it out, and just replace it with a single chord or maybe two chords, and if you like, play it in a vamp. Cool, and that's it for me for this video. Thanks for watching again. As always, feel free to leave any questions or comments. See ya.